Welcome back to FreightWaves Now. It is time to check in with Blythe Brumleve, host of Cyberly here on FreightWaves TV, our content marketing social media expert. Today we're talking a little bit about how you are annoying visitors to your website. And Blythe, I've got to say, my number one annoyance is going to a website and constantly being asked to sign in all the time. That's my number one.
There are so many things that are wrong with the current website experience. But first of all, welcome in, you guys. Thanks for having me. And I am so ready to talk about this topic because I've been building websites since 2007. And it just feels like the process has just been overcomplicated and confusing, where a current website visitor, when they arrive on your site, they arrive there typically through a blog article or some other kind of, landing page initiative where you're sending traffic from some other source to your website. And the first thing that they experience is a bombardment of pop-ups and asked to sign up for your email newsletter and then, accept these privacy settings. And then it's another chat box that pops up asking if you have any questions. And by the time that you check out of all of these different things, you forgot why you arrived at the damn website to begin with. And so it's one of those things that with a new study that just came out that talked about the differences between desktop traffic and mobile traffic to your website, I just think that it's a great time to talk about all the annoying ways that you are treating your website visitors in this attempt as sort of a quick cash grab instead of trying to just serve them the content that they came to the site for.
Well, I think that's a huge point. And for me, is one of those areas when I look at different websites, I can only imagine the mobile experience really definitely being underutilized as well, because there's been times where I feel like it has to be weeks or maybe even months that I've looked at an actual desktop website and I'm just doing everything through my phone.
Yeah, it's kind of a unique situation because there was a study that was just released that talked about how specifically when it comes to B2B, that desktop had 90% higher average order value and time on site than mobile. And when you think about it from a mobile perspective, 9 times out of 10, when you're on a mobile device, you're scrolling through your social media feeds, you might leave that app to go somewhere else. But mostly we kind of are, it's almost like goldfish memory. Whenever you arrive on a social media site, you just immediately X out, you go to the next social media site and you do it all over again, and you do it several times a day. Whereas if you're on the desktop experience, you're more or less more dedicated to what you're trying to read, what you're trying to do, what you're trying to sign up for. And so this study I thought was really interesting because I think for the last probably 5 to 7 years, mobile traffic has been trending up. It's eventually overtaken desktop as far as your overall traffic to your website. But desktop conversions and time on site, this new study proves that a lot of folks now, I think with people working from home, the phone is less of an escape for them. And so they are exploring more solutions and different news articles and things like that, but they're doing it in a desktop environment. And so if you are only showing certain sort of pop-ups and CTAs in a desktop environment, you may need to rethink that strategy because if you're bombarding your audience with all of these different options, then ultimately when they arrive to your site, then they forget why they're there in the first place, and then your conversion rate lowers. So knowing that kind of insight, then you could probably target your marketing a little bit differently on desktop versus mobile.
I've got to think about when it comes to website design as well, is you really have to kind of sit down and take a look at like where you want to hide or highlight your different types of information, right? I think there's a big annoyance, especially when it comes to folks like us who do a lot of journalism, when you're looking for sources or for articles or something, and you have to click like 8 or 9 different spaces to find even just a simple description about what the company does, right? Can you talk a little bit about the thought process when it comes to what you should hide, what you should highlight, kind of how you rank of importance the information you want to display?
So specifically when we're talking about businesses, because I think that media sites, like a sports media brand or even FreightWaves to an extent, like they have so much information to display that it's a different use case than what a traditional business website has to display. And I think for a lot of companies, including myself, I'm currently going through this process myself of what I can remove from the experience. So then that way, when somebody arrives on my site or arrives on a client site, then that way they have a clear path to conversion. Because right now we have a tendency to, and I'm speaking for myself from this lens, and from seeing other websites out there, that the pathway to conversion is a little confusing. You're trying to show all of the things that you can do and all of the things that you've talked about, but in reality, your website visitor is coming there. If they're coming there for the first time, which a good majority of your traffic will always be new visitors, what does that pathway to conversion look like? What are you showing them at a glance as far as what that next step that you want them to take? Do you want them to check out a pricing page? Do you want them to check out your services page? Is your About Us page even live and optimized for that new viewer experience? Because the About Us page is the second highest trafficked page on your site. So typically how a visitor will arrive is they'll come through on a blog article, or they'll go directly to your home page. And then that next page that they visit is the About Us page. So your About Us page, your pricing, and your services are probably the most important pages on your entire site, whereas the homepage and the blog page have a very different reason for why somebody is coming to your site. So making sure that you have those other three main pages in clear view that somebody can check out. And then there's also, a pathway either to a mini conversion or a full on, like book a demo, buy something from us conversion, where that first conversion could be follow us on social media, sign up for our non-pop-up email newsletter. And then that's that first sort of conversion that you want to be thinking about. And then the second form of conversion is the holy grail. That's the book a demo, book a sales call, and also buy something from us. So that end goal conversion still has to be prominent, but also you don't want to take away from the experience of when somebody's coming to your site and they want to learn more about you. And that's what your services page does. That's what your product page does. And that's what your About Us page does. Because ultimately, people do business with people. And if they can't trust you, if you don't have a face to a name, if you don't have a good story on your About Us page, then they're less likely to do business with you.
Blythe, I think that those are all great points. And one of those things that you mentioned here was that marketing aspect. And transitioning to a next topic and talking point here, can you talk to what marketers really kind of need to take into account when really being able to fulfill or do their job to the highest of a capability?
And I think that that's a great point that you bring up, because from that lens, you have to think about it from the marketing lens. You have to think about your position within the company, because for a lot of marketers or a lot of companies, you're lucky to have one person that handles all of your marketing, especially for a lot of the SMBs and freight. And when you have that one person that's handling your marketing, it is so vital for them to be sitting in on other department meetings, sales meetings, operational meetings, even from the accounting meetings, knowing what's going on from every lens of the company. So then that way you can convey those questions, you can convey those comments in the way that, your business is approaching a certain topic or a certain lane or a certain commodity. You're approaching that from your content perspective. And so when you don't sit in on those meetings, you're just kind of blindly creating content. You're blindly creating social media posts, maybe an email newsletter, a general roundup of industry topics, things like that. But you're not really creating something that makes people want to take that next step with you, makes people want to click on that button in your email newsletter and then go to your website and check out a demo, or even, book a demo or see what other kind of content you have to offer. So it's setting up that pathway to conversion, but you can't set that pathway up to conversion unless you know what actually your audience cares about. So for example, sitting in on a sales meeting is something that you should do on a regular basis. Any marketer in this industry, really in any industry, you should be sitting in on every single sales meeting, not every single one, but at least once a week. So then that way you have an idea of the questions that are being asked and the questions that prospects are asking, current customers are asking, and see if you can answer that and use your website as that end, sort of that additional sales team member in order to answer those questions. So then that way, when somebody does convert on your website, they're that much closer to closing with you as a customer. So then your marketing is doing a lot of the hard work, and sales is going to love you because you're doing a lot of that hard work for them and a lot of that heavy lifting. So then all they have to worry about is just closing the deal.
Blythe, really quickly before we let you go today, what's coming up on Cyber Elite tomorrow that we should be looking out for?
So we're going to dive into a couple more of these topics, especially when it comes to your website. So desktop versus mobile. And then we're going to talk to Lorena Carmego. She is the founder and CEO of a company called Pearl Transport and Logistics out on the West Coast. I'm super excited to talk with her because they do some medical courier, some different kind of shipments in the freight world. So I think it's going to be fascinating to chat with her. And then we also have Eric Huberman of Hawk Media coming on, who's going to help us with our outsourcing our marketing and when is the good time to take that next step.
Blythe, amazing. It's always great having you on. You know, an area of the website that I always look to, FAQs, frequently asked questions, because I just want to avoid unnecessary communication if I can. But Blythe, thank you so much for joining us. We're looking forward to your episode a little bit later on today.
Thank you guys so much.